Hey guys, welcome to another episode of The Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick.
I'm Ian.
Today we're talking about some great one and done bands. There's a bunch of links down below. Make sure you go check them out. There's links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist we put together every week, and the Patreon page. Make sure you go check all that out. Of course, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give us a little thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time we release new episodes. So over the years, there's been a bunch of great bands that for one reason or another have only created one album, and then that was it. And a couple of ones I have, I'd love to see them do. Actually, all the ones I have,
Yeah,
I'd love to see them do more albums. But so far, for like I said, for one reason or another, this is all they've ever done. The first one I have is as a side project of one of my favorite bands, Blink-182. This is Plus 44. This the name of the album is When Your Heart Stops Beating. This is just Mark Hoppus and Travis Barker. I don't remember who else. They brought in, I think it was one of their guitar techs. They brought in to help them do this. And actually, Plus 44 is a reference to the calling code number for the UK, which is where the band was put together. So, great album, great punk album. It's different than what they did with Blink. Is a little bit harder. Is a little bit more
Edge to it.
A little more edge to. It's not as like goofy, as some of the stuff they did with Blank, but overall just a great album. Some of the best writing of Mark Hoppus's career, I think, is on this album.
So I'll preface mine. I don't have any props. So
Like always,
somewhere in here we'll have a picture of something,
Yes.
right here. For two reasons. One, I didn't know that one was already released on vinyl, but it's super expensive. I don't know. I'm not paying for it that much, but the other two I don't think were ever released on vinyl, at least not yet. So, but the first one is this first and only solo album by Getty Lee of Rush. It's a good album, and I think it really focuses a lot of what he contributed to Rush, because Rush was always a 3-unit. I mean, everyone in the band wrote.
Yeah.
Every song had elements of everybody. So this is kind of just showing off what his contribution would be or was to Rush. And it's a really good album. I kind of hope he does something more, because neither him or Alex Lifeson have done anything really. Alex Lifeson's done. He has his own little side project, but since Neil Peart died, they haven't really done anything. There's rumor they might reunite for something next year, but for the 50th.
I'm not banking on it.
I'm not going to bank on it either. And I think even if they did, it wouldn't be as Rush. And I'm fine with that.
So when I first started thinking of this topic, there was one album that came to my head immediately. Mm-hmm. And it's a great album from beginning to end. It's really known for one song, though, even though there's so many other great songs on this album. It is the self-titled album from Temple of the Dog. Of course, this is with Chris Cornell and a lot of the guys that end up being or forming Pearl Jam. And this is Eddie Vedder was involved in this also. Before anyone knew who Eddie Vedder was. Of course, this project was put together to honor the life of Andy Wood, the lead singer of Mother Love Bone, who died tragically. But like I said, Hunger Strike is that one song. It got absolutely huge when this album first came out. But if that's all you know of this album, definitely go back and check out the rest of it.
Yeah, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Absolutely, because it's not even it's probably not even one of my 3 favorite tracks on this album.
So the next one I have is it's collaboration between two like classic rock heavyweights, and it's the Coverdale Page album that came out in 1993. I remember when this came out, there was a lot of buzz, but there was also a lot of like controversy, because they were like, it's the poor man's Led Zeppelin in a sense. I never felt that way. I thought it was a great album, a great contribution to the classic rock thing that was still alive at the time. It hadn't been milked yet. It was just, now it's just, it's dollar signs and commercials for, soda.
Everything under everything
but,
under the sun.
Classic rock still had some level of esteem at the time, and it I like it. And rumor has it they're going to reissue it, but this is the one that there is a vinyl copy, I guess, out there, a vinyl pressing out there.
I'm pretty sure I've seen it on vinyl before.
If it's out there, it's it's way out of my price range.
It might have been a bootleg also. I'm not really sure.
It could have been. But either way, it's out of my price range until they reissue it, which I will definitely buy it when they do.
Yeah, it's a really underrated album.
I think so. And like I said, there was a lot of controversy. So, I mean, people talked about it, but people either loved it or they thought it was just...
absolute garbage.
Just Led Zeppelin wannabe, I mean, that's kind of silly to say
and
because
this is the thing that I think hurt that album is people took that album and wanted to compare it to some of the greatest works that Led Zeppelin did,
Right.
And in comparison, I don't think it lives up to Led Zeppelin 2,
right.
But in its own way, it's still a great album. It's not.
It stands alone.
Yeah, and it's not something that's supposed to be a Led Zeppelin copy.
No. But I mean, you've got half of the primary writing core in the Coverdale Page. It's Jimmy Page is a strong writing presence in all of Zeppelin's music.
Absolutely.
So of course there's going to be some overlap.
So the next one I've got is a pretty interesting band. They only created this one album. And then there's all these different stories as to why they only created this one album. There was the one story I always heard was that the band was just kind of fed up with stardom and they were just in it just for the music and they didn't like all the other stuff that went along with it, which I think is kind of a good story. And then there's the other side of it that I heard was the Greg Alexander is a complete ass and people didn't like to work with him.
My guess is the latter.
And his band hated him. Yeah. So he kind of broke it all off and went off on his own. Is that him on the cover? It is him on the cover.
He kind of looks like a D-bag to me, but that's just my opinion. I'm not a big fan of this album.
This is a great album. New Radicals, this is the only album they ever did. You get I forgot what the name of the one big track was that is on this album. You Get What You Give is the big track. I couldn't remember. I don't know why I couldn't remember off the top of my head. Everyone knows that one song. But there's so many other great tracks on this album. And Greg Alexander's gone on to do a bunch of production work after he left his band. I think he was nominated for an Academy Award for some production stuff that he did, or some songs that he wrote for some movies. So he's done other stuff after this. I don't know what story is true. I want to believe that he just hated the whole Star Life. And,
but it seems to me like if that's the case, then you don't make a record.
Yeah.
You perform in bars or clubs or whatever. You do that and you keep the music real. If you don't want stardom, you don't make a record. So I'm going to go with I would rather go with the latter because it's just more realistic, in my opinion. I can understand if they had made like 3 albums and the stardom was just like Taylor Swift level stardom and they're like, oh man, this is too much. I can understand that. But you made one album that was had a couple popular songs. That's not stardom.
It was a huge album. I mean, they did get very, very popular, very, very, very famous off of this one album. But you're right. They weren't like one of the biggest bands in the world. They never got to that point. But it is a great album, and it's one that I absolutely love this album. It's one of my favorite 90s albums. And, just a great one-and-done band.
The last one I have it was a one-and-done by a band that doesn't exist anymore. The main songwriter for the band went on and tried other bands, but even that didn't really work out for him. The band's called Sordid Humor. The album's called Light Music for Dying People. It came out in 1994.
We've actually talked about that album on the show.
I think we have. It's one of my favorite indie rock albums ever. Because the music is it's indie. There's no question. You listen to it, that's indie music. But it's kind of unique even in that realm. It's almost difficult to describe the music, to be honest with you. But who play on the album, Tom Barnes is the main songwriter. It's really his outfit.
Yeah.
But you've got David Immergluck from Counting Crows, Marty Jones, who played with Counting Crows and all that. I think he was with the Himalayans as well.
Isn't Adam Duritz on that album?
Adam Duritz does backing vocals on the album. Marty Jones, for a little bit of trivia, is the Mr. Jones of Mr. Jones, the song by Counting Crows. So, I mean, it's got a lot of Counting Crows connections to it, which is why I bought it in the first place. I had never heard it. And I was
but it doesn't sound like Counting Crows.
No, I mean,
at all.
Not really, but it does kind of have that. If you listen to Counting Crows stuff, like their demo stuff, like pre-August, there's a little bit of it there, and even with the Himalayans, there's some of it there too.
And then the last one I got on my list is an album that I love. It's probably one of the most influential punk albums in music history, at least since it was released. I think it was 1988 or 89 when this album came out. It's definitely been the most influential punk album since then, and that is Energy by Operation Ivy. There would not be punk, at least as we know it in the 90s and 2000s, if it were not for this album. This was a kind of flash in the pan kind of moment. The band was only together for 2 years. They only created this album. There was an EP that they did also, but this is the only album that they ever released. And like I said, there would be no Rancid, there'd be no Green Day, there'd be, no Offspring, a lot of other bands. It's because of this album that those bands exist. That's why I said your punk music, as we know it today, would not exist without this album. Well, that's all we got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. There's so many other great one-and-done bands that we could have went over. I think I had to trim my list down. I initially had, I think, at least 7 or 8 that I had to trim them down. Just great albums by bands that only released one album. But let us know what you guys think. Make sure you drop us a comment down below. Let us know what some of your favorite one-and-done bands are. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give us the old thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all we got. Until next time.
Talk to y'all later.
Keep on spinning. Peace.